Hello, 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 ladies, gentlemen, and others. How are you guys doing today? I hope the answer is fantastic. It is your fellow Kuro here today to talk to you guys about the upcoming PvP event, Whitestrake's Mayhem. For those of you guys who are unaware of exactly what that is, I do have a video up with all of the details, so go check that out for all the info you may or may not want to know on how the event works, when it is, what the rewards are, etc. Today, though, we are going to be talking about classes. As a matter of fact, we're going to be talking about every class today. Unfortunately, in this beautiful, beautiful game, not every class was really created equal, and some classes do perform a bit better in PvP than others. However, do not let that discourage you guys, because every class does have the capacity to be good and to be viable when built correctly. But I know some of you guys are looking to pick up maybe the best class for the event, or maybe just wondering how your class is going to stand up compared to the rest, and if that is you, well, this video is specifically made for you. We're going to rank every single class tier list style, from B tier to S tier. We're not going anywhere lower than that, because honestly everything in the game is pretty decent right now, and we're going to talk about their strengths, their weaknesses, and what you can expect from them during the event. I will also be providing you guys with links to builds for every single class in case you're interested in updating your setup to be a bit more competitive, or if you want to build an entirely new character from scratch. And instead of tooting my own horn and linking you guys my own builds, I'm going to take this opportunity showing some love to some other creators here on YouTube that main the classes that I will be talking about, or at least play them a little more than I do, so that way you guys get the best information possible. Before we dive on in though, just a quick reminder to drop a like on the video if you want to make my day, and if you do enjoy the video, consider maybe dropping a sub and turning on post notifications so you never miss an upload. Now without any further ado guys, let's go ahead and hop on into these rankings, starting with the weakest classes and making our way on to the strongest. Quick disclaimer though, these rankings are based off of a few specific factors, including their ability to both stay alive as well as their ability to deal with multiple opponents. Since this event will include massive sized groups and a lot of people, the latter detail is going to be very important. So with that in mind, some classes that I would usually rate higher may be a little lower on the totem pole than expected. Also, this is all subjective and it's my opinion, so please don't cry or yell at me or attack me if you don't like my opinions, because everyone is entitled to their own, and I'm sure you have your own, and I totally respect that, so please respect mine. So starting us off, we're going to dive right into the B tier. Our first class in B tier is the Stamina Sorcerer. This footage in the background is from ItzApex's YouTube channel, and his build can be found linked down below in the description. So, Stam Sorc. By all rights, it's a very good class. It has high mobility, it can definitely put out some impressive bursts, especially single target when it's built right, and it does have some options for versatility with things like bow, bombard, and all that fun stuff. However, there are some problems, okay? Stam Sorc, unfortunately, doesn't really have very many options when it comes to dealing with multiple opponents at once, unless you are doing some bombard stuff, but not everyone wants to do that, and while it can be very strong, it is quite limiting. So they have no form of AoE burst in their class kit, and they do rely on ultimates like Dawnbreaker for AoE, which, as a lot of us already know, sometimes just doesn't work. On top of that, when it comes to healing, Stam Sorc lacks any really good options for self-healing. They have Crit Surge, which is okay, but even if you have enough crit to make it proc on cooldown, it's not really going to be that much. Darkteal is also a nice tool for self-sustain and healing, but the cast time on it makes it very clunky, as well as a bit dangerous to use in a lot of situations. So yeah, for those reasons, Stam Sorc is definitely a B tier class for this event. Our next B tier class is the Stam Sorc's robe-wearing cousin, MagSorc. The footage for this class was provided by Malcolm, and his in-depth Magicka Sorcerer guide is linked down below. MagSorc has a lot of the same problems that Stam Sorc does, with a lot of the same benefits. They have incredibly high mobility, they can burst down a single target from range incredibly fast, but they do lack in AoE options. They can find some, but really they're not that great. They do have the ability to drop negates, so you are sure to be appreciated by your group leader, despite the shortcomings of AoE damage, but honestly, Stam Sorc can do the same thing, and they can probably do it better, because they have more versatility through their weapon choices, and can do a few more things. Unfortunately, when it comes to MagSorc, especially in group play, most of the time you're just going to be confirming kills from range with Mage's Wrath that were probably already going to die even without your help. They do have some pretty impressive survivability when compared to the Stam Sorc through use of shields, resto heals, and if you want to, you can even slot in the pet heal. The downside of that, though, is that they do end up taking up quite a lot of bar space to really capitalize on them to their fullest potential, and that's going to limit your space for other useful abilities. And if you skimp out on your defenses on a MagSorc, let's just say it's one of those classes that falls faster than a leaf in the wind, and you can't really do anything useful when you're dead. So for that reason, MagSorc is going to sit here in the B tier for this event. Up next in the B tier, we have Warden. The footage for this class was provided by Nyce Gaming, and his build can be found down below in the description. So, Warden. It's a bit of a weird one. Warden, built as a healer, can be incredibly powerful, but the second you stray away from that path, things start to take a bit of a nosedive. While Magden has a great kit for healing your friends, their self-healing capabilities are pretty bad compared to most other classes, whether it's the fact that the new CP don't match up too well with the way healing works now, or the fact that you're forced to stack incredibly high HP for Arctic Blast to be an even halfway decent heal. Staying alive on the Magden can sometimes be problematic. In regards to their offensive kit, they do have some pretty useful tools. They have a strong AoE root, which can be utilized pretty effectively by both tanks and damage characters alike, as well as Deep Fissure, which is a very strong AoE burst ability that also applies a major armor buff to all enemies that it hits. They also have Sleet Storm, which is a really nice AoE ultimate that deals respectable damage and makes your group tankier when you use it. The real issue with the Warden offensive kit, though, is their lack of any good on-demand stuns, their lack of a solid spammable, aside from if you want to run Vampire for, say, Blood for Blood. And one of the most annoying of all is their lack of an execute, making it very hard for this class to confirm kills on its own, since a lot of their abilities are kind of timed. So, it makes it pretty difficult. So while I do think that Magden is great when it comes to providing a pretty astounding group utility at times, it's just not quite enough to put it in the higher tiers, and instead it remains right here in B tier. Our fourth and final B tier class is the Stamina Templar. Stamina Templar gameplay was provided by NesESO, and his build is linked down below. So this one may surprise some of you guys, but unfortunately I do genuinely believe that Stamplar is on the weaker end of the spectrum for a lot of reasons. Starting off with their offensive kit, we have Jabs. Jabs are great, they deal a lot of damage, they're AoE, they slow, they give a crit buff, lots of good things to say about that, but they do have some drawbacks as well. Number one being that they are a channel, so it takes a little bit of time to use them. It makes it much less bursty than some other AoE abilities, and the fact that their AoE damage is reduced and only the closest target takes full damage from them makes them really underperform compared to a lot of other AoE skills, as they are the only AoE skill in the game that scales that way, so they do not compare very well with other AoE tools. They do, however, have access to a very good ultimate in the form of Crescent Sweep, which helps out with that quite a bit. It's cheap, it hits really hard, it's nice. However, the Stamplar's other supplemental burst tools are all pretty single target oriented, making it a pretty good class for 1v1s, but just not too great for fighting groups. It's not the best. It kind of sucks to hear, but it does have a lot of things holding it back. The other more pressing issue for Stamplars, though, is that they don't have a lot of healing. While Stamplars do have minor mending and access to cleanse, almost all of the Stamplars' healing is over time, making it much harder to react to enemy offensive plays. They do provide some decent group utility through having the ritual and some of their passives, but unfortunately their counterpart Magplar, which we'll talk about later, just does everything better. So that's why Stamina Templar remains here in the B tier. So that wraps up the B tier classes. Just as a reminder, none of these classes are inherently bad, they just fall a bit short of the classes ahead. So let's go ahead and hop now into the A tier. Starting us off in the A tier, we have the Stamina Dragonite. The DK for the Stamina Dragonite is from Fullyy here on YouTube, and his build is, of course, linked down below. When it comes to the Image of Fortitude, Stam DK just immediately comes to mind. Stam DKs have incredible healing power through DK passives, as well as on-demand major mending, making them one of the more difficult classes to finish off unless you burst them down perfectly. They also benefit from additional block damage mitigation, again leading into making them pretty hard to kill. Also, they have really good sustain through passives and stuff. The real drawbacks for Stam DK start to show up in their offensive kit. The Stam DK focuses mostly on a single target pressure kind of gameplay, which is, as previously mentioned, is just not ideal, especially with all the people that are going to be running around out there. But the real issue here is that single target gameplay is accentuated when you consider the fact that they rely very heavily on dots, which don't hold up very well when you got a lot of people to fight because of the power of cross healing. Now, in my opinion, what the real saving grace for Stam DK offensively is their selection of really impressive ultimates. You could choose between Take Flight, the single highest damage direct damage ultimate in the game, which is AoE and is also a gap closer and a stun. You can choose Corrosive Armor, which makes you incredibly tanky and gives you 100% penetration on your direct damage attacks, letting you deal very impressive damage to single targets or in AoE, depending on what weapon skill lines you decide to run. And lastly, you could choose to use Shifting Standard, which, while being arguably the weakest of these choices, in a lot of cases, it's not always the weakest, because it does pair very well with classes that are using things like Harmony, because of the powerful synergy that it has, as well as giving a strong AoE dot and a nasty healing debuff, which makes it harder for enemies to bounce back from coordinated attacks. And that, my friends, is why the Stam DK is A tier. Now, the next class we have in A tier is the Magicka Nightblade. The Magblade gameplay here was found over on Luca Cash's YouTube, and his build is linked down below. So in general, I've never been too big of a fan of the Magblade. It has had a pretty unimpressive healing kit for a long time. Its single target damage is too predictable and very avoidable, and it can be pretty difficult to confirm single target kills more often than not. However, for mid-year Mayhem specifically, when we'll have tons and tons of larger groups and newer players and people that don't PvP too often, well, that's going to play right into the Magblade's strength. Magblade is, after all, the class for group bombing, and always has been. Utilizing things like Soul Tether and Proximity Detonation, they can very easily burst entire groups in the blink of an eye from stealth, and with certain set combinations and skills, they can even bomb from range as well. Almost every good PvP group wants to have at least one Magblade bomber because they are just so effective at helping to stack up bodies, and this event's going to be no different. And it's also going to be a great class if you want to play alone, because it's going to give you the power to stay hidden, stay defensive, and still take out large groups of enemies entirely by yourself. The thing that's keeping them from being S tier, however, is their flimsiness if they are exposed or, say, fail a bomb. While they did see some pretty nice buffs to their healing kit in Deadlands, it's still not going to be enough to help you survive against an entire, very angry Zerg group. And then, sadly, if you decide not to play the bombing Magblade style, well, your usefulness is going to be very limited in much the same way that the MagSorc is, so that is why Magblade sits at a nice, comfortable A tier. The next class in the A tier is the Stamina Nightblade, the bane of Cyrodiil, depending on who you ask. Stamblade footage here was provided by TheRealGodzilla, and his build is linked down below. So, Stamblade. Most people will know the Stamblade as that really annoying ganker that just won't leave you alone, but when built right, it can also be just as effective at dropping entire groups as the Magblade. Potentially, in some cases, even more so because they do have access to an AoE execute through dual wield if they wish to take it. Aside from that, they have one of the most oppressive single target damage kits in the game, which when combined with their elusiveness and mobility can be utilized to great effect in an effort to eliminate specific targets within a group, such as healers. Their healing is also respectable, although it's nothing fantastic and it's not really winning them any points. Magblade's healing is probably a little better now that they have a good burst heal. Just like the Magblade, though, they can be very, very flimsy if they are caught in a bad position, and they're going to require some real quick thinking to save your life from dangerous situations, making it a little more difficult to play at a high level. And for these reasons, the Stamblade remains in A tier. Next up in the A tier is the Stamina Necromancer. The Stamina Necromancer gameplay here was provided by Is There No One Else, and his build is linked down below. StamCro is a very strong class in every regard, And when I say that, I really genuinely mean it. It is very, very strong. It's incredibly tanky, one of the tankiest, if not the tankiest in the game, through a lot of free mitigation the class gets, really, really good passives, you know, all kinds of stuff. It's got great AoE pressure with blast bones and with multiple choices for good AoE ultimates. It can do some real damage to groups. It also has a very strong healing kit, which when stacked on top of the aforementioned tankiness, makes them almost impossible to kill unless they want to die. Honestly, the only reason that they're not in S tier is because the mag version is just better in every way, honestly. So yeah, StamCro is a great class in its own right, and you can do a lot of fun things on it, so if it's your main and you want to play it, you'll still have quite a lot of success, but its shortcomings when compared to the Magcro is really what's keeping it here in the A tier. Our last class in the A tier is the Stamina Warden. Stamina Warden gameplay here was also found over on Luca channel, and this build is linked in the description. Stamina Warden is very similar in a lot of ways to the Stamina Necromancer. They both have very strong AoE burst, they both get very, very tanky through passives and basically just free mitigation they get. They both have access to a whole lot of buffs. They have access to several different spammables because they're stamina based, and they're very, very customizable. Where Stamina Warden pulls ahead, in my opinion, is the sheer power and reliability of their offensive kit. Sometimes, when you're playing StamCro, Blastbones just decides it wants to go off on an island vacation without you, right when you decide that you want to go offensive, but Subterranean Assault is never going to do that. So, if you combine that with a nice Dawnbreaker, maybe Whirling Blades from the dual wield skill line, and stack up the damage with those percentage modifiers that you get for free on the Stam Warden, and you've got what could be one of the most dangerous AoE combos for group slaying in the game. Stamden's big problem, however, is that unlike the Stamina Necro and very much like the Magical Warden, their healing is abysmal. So unless you sacrifice damage to build up extra healing or tankiness, or sustain, or stack into a lot of health to make Arctic Blast pretty good, their self-sustain is not great. But if you play in a group where you have a few off heals, maybe a full-on healer, you're going to see a lot more offensive success on the Stamden than you would on the Magden, because they do have access to several different options for spambles and executes, a luxury which the Magica Warden does not have. And that, my friends, is why the Stamden is here in A tier. So that does it for the A tier. These classes are all very strong for different reasons and are all quite a lot of fun to play. They all just suffer from very specific minor issues that keep them from reaching their true potential and of course becoming S tier. So let's go ahead and take a look at the classes that don't have those drawbacks and will bring you the most success at the least cost. Let's go ahead and dive on in to the S tier. Starting us off with the S tier is the Magica Templar, and I know, I said I wasn't going to toot my own horn, but this is my main class, so I'm going to go ahead and use some of my own gameplay and my own build for this one. Of course, links down below. So the Magplar, as I'm sure you guys are aware, is incredibly strong right now. They have access to one of the strongest healing kits in the game, especially when in conjunction with a restoration staff. They provide great group utility with things like Ritual, great group buffs through passives, and a strong heal for both themselves and their group members with Honor the Dead / Breath of Life. You throw Vampire Stage 3 on there, consider that they get inherent minor protection, and their offensive healing with puncturing sweeps, and they are incredibly hard to kill no matter if they are on the offense or on the defense. They do also have access to a few AoE options that the Stamplar just can't quite utilize. They've got things like Solar Barrage, which is an AoE dot that hits respectively hard. They have skills from the Destro Staff skill line, like the wall one that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head right now, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And those things all just kind of combine to make their AoE offense a lot stronger when combined with their sweeps and their crescent. They even have a very, very strong undodgeable ranged execute that helps to put down targets in a lot of different situations that other classes just wouldn't be able to do. Someone's dodge rolling, don't worry, we got the beam. Someone is very, very far away, don't worry, we got the beam. Unless you got a MagSorc in your group, then he can help, but hey, it is what it is. Now, I think that their offensive kit is the weakest of the S tier classes, which is why I put them here first, but their survivability and their group utility is just so impressive that I think that alone is what keeps them here on the S tier, and that is why they are here in the S tier. The second class we have here in the S tier is Magica Necromancer. Surprise, surprise. The gameplay for this class was provided by thegoddeity, and his build can be found below. So, what makes Magcro so much better than StamCro? Well, let's start off with their defensive kit. Magic and Necromancer has hands down the best healing kit in the entire game, with absolutely zero competition. They have Intensive Mender, which gives them burst heal level heals every 2 seconds for half the cost of a skill that would provide the same amount of healing just once. And it actively seeks out whoever in your group is the lowest health, so that way it can be both a very strong off-heal and self-heal at the same time, whichever is needed at the moment. They also have access to the best single-target burst heal in the game with Resistant Flesh. This thing's tooltip is a good bit higher than its contemporaries from other classes, and it also provides an armor buff based on the healing done, which lends very well to their inherent high mitigation that the class already has. They also have access to the Tether, which heals both them and their group at the same time, and it also gives them back their stamina, which is great for sustain at 0 cost. They have a strong AoE burst heal if they want to help keep the group alive. So yeah, if it wasn't obvious, the class is very, very hard to kill. They also get all kinds of buffs, from major protection to a healing buff that is just as strong as minor mending, not major mending, but still minor mending, pretty good. They get a free % healing buff from having certain skills slotted, they get free HP, they get free penetration, they get free crit, they get massive ultimate generation, and a whole lot more. And then we get to their offensive kit. Blast Bones, Magica Blast Bones. It's just like Stamina Blast Bones, except the fact that it can and will hit quite a bit harder due to the way it scales. Combo that with a good AoE set like, say, Dark Convergence, the big Smashy Boy Ultimate, and Boneyard, and you've got a good AoE combo that can one-shot just about anybody if they're caught off guard, and wipe entire groups if executed correctly. So, they can bomb just as effectively as a Nightblade, with absolutely zero of the drawbacks. They can also make incredible use of the Harmony trait to buff their own combo damage and pair it with other synergies from their group members for absolutely disgusting coordinated combo attacks. And for these reasons, my friends, the Magcro is S tier. And now for our 12th and final class on the list. The last class in S tier, and in my opinion the best PvP class overall currently in the game, the Magicka Dragonite. The Magicka DK gameplay here was found over at ScarrX's channel, and his build is linked down below, so definitely make sure to go check him out. So I'm sure you guys all saw this coming, especially after dealing with the Mag DK meta all patch already, but let's go ahead and explain why the class is as strong as it is. First and foremost, they have all the benefits that I mentioned from Stam DK previously. They are naturally very tanky, they have great healing both offensively and defensively through things like Coagulating Blood, which is a spammable burst heal which can easily crit for 10, 11, 12k and heals more based on how low your health is. And then Flame Lash, which heals you every time you slap someone with the old noodle when it's procced, allowing you to really full send to your offensive. They also have pretty incredible sustain through things like passives and the change to charged and burning, which in my mind is just kind of boggling when you stop to consider that sustain was their biggest issue for years. And all these things make them very hard to put down when you combine them together. They also have easy access to several strong AoE dots and several more single target dots for absolutely ridiculous dot pressure, which, like I said before, can be negated a bit by the off-healing meta that we have right now, but there are so many of them, they're going to feel it anyway, and it's accentuated more when you consider that they have great built-in control tools like an undodgeable, unblockable stun, and an AoE root, a strong single-target spammable, and they have a strong AoE burst options as well with things like Talons, Flames of Oblivion, and Deep Breath, and all of these things can be buffed up and made go through all resistances if you so choose with Corrosive. On top of that, they also have access to all the other great ultimates that DK has, and they can pair incredibly well with a Harmony Bomb build in their group, like say that Magcro that we talked about before, because they have a lot of synergies in their kit. You have one with the standard, and you have one with Talons, so if you drop a Harmony Bomb with your friend can just spam synergies 17 times in a row and blow up literally everybody, and that'll be a glorious thing. And also, you combine the Magplar synergy from their Nova, and you've got even more nasty synergy, and that's why these three classes, when combined together, are absolutely disgusting. And that, my friends, is why Mag DK is not only S tier, but in my opinion, is the strongest PvP class in the game at this moment. And with that, ladies, gentlemen, others, friends, everybody, that is the end of the video. That is the end of this list and the end of the rankings. I hope I was able to help shed some light for you guys on what may or may not be better or worse for you for this upcoming patch, or at least informs you on how your main class will be performing for the most part during this event. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Leave a mean comment if you want to, or leave a nice comment. Again, that's up to you guys. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking this video out. If you would like to support me on a more deep, intimate level, I do have both YouTube channel memberships and Patreon, and everyone that subs to one of those definitely is going in my will, so that way when I die, you can get about 27 cents each. I know it is crazy, don't lose your minds, just relax. I do appreciate it though, when you guys do that, and I just want to let you know that I love you, and I love you even if you don't do it. It's not necessary or required in any way. But guys, that's it. I'm gonna stop talking now. I know it's annoying, I know. You guys have a great day, great night, great evening. Don't know what time it is for you. I love you. Kuro out. Mwah.
I could follow you.